Well, welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Eric Gordon, and I am thrilled to see you here today. Welcome. I'm calling this talk, Wait, Where Did I Go? And I'm going to spend some time sharing some of my experiences, some of the hope and some of the insights that have come out of them. And then we're going to save some time to talk at the end and hear some questions from people. And then, believe it or not, after I finish this talk, I'm going to jump in my car, ride over to school, and teach my 9th grade students, which is to say I am a teacher, an English teacher. I thought we might start today with a little meditation, and just a focusing meditation. I was thinking, as I was thinking about this talk, and I'll tell you now, I resisted mapping it out too much. And that's kind of my challenge. I am, among many other things, a recovering perfectionist. And I have really, in my recovery, I've really worked to have a level of presence and authenticity. And when I am giving these talks, the older version would have even scripted, not just laid out all of the points, but scripted what I was going to say, because I want it to sound so smart and perfect. And now I'm going to do my best to be present, share some of my experience with you, share some of the places that I've been, and hope that we find some connection in those. But a little bit of a grounding meditation first. One of the things that is central, absolutely central to my sobriety, my recovery, and my life is gratitude, the place of gratitude. And I find that I start tripping up when I'm not taking the time to acknowledge the things in my life that all around me that I can and should be grateful for. So if everybody would get comfortable, center your feet on the floor if that's comfortable for you, sitting up straight, just stretch your neck a little bit. You could do some circles with your head. Just kind of coming into a tall posture into yourself. Find a spot maybe 6, 7, 8 feet ahead of you. Focus on it, and then allow your eyes to come into a soft focus. And what's helpful for me with the soft focus is to partially close my eyes. Just allow the lids to come into maybe a half closure. And some of it is about relaxing those eye muscles. Take a deep breath through the nose. And a slow exhale. And one more deep inhale through the nose. And as you exhale this time, allow the eyelids to close all the way. Come down into a soft close, nothing tight in the face. Bring your awareness to that darkness that's just come. But at the same time, recognize the lingering light, that light that still persists as your eyelids close. And just breathe into this. Deep breaths through the nose. I'd like you to take a moment to think about all of the people in your day today, your day yesterday, all of the people behind the scenes who've made things possible for you. the food that you ate this morning. The people that grew that, maybe we'll see them, maybe we won't, but there's so much to be thankful for there. People who brought your mail, someone who made you a nice cup of tea. Just take a moment to acknowledge all of the things, all of the gifts we're receiving that we don't always see. The people whose hard work, whose effort is helping us. Now take a moment to just capture three things, three good things that you're grateful for, specific things. This is a practice I do with my students. Capture them in your mind, your eyes are closed. I'm grateful for the way my cat came and sat on my lap this morning. I'm grateful for the way that the mist came into my backyard. Find three of those as these thoughts come through, as you're scanning your day, the events around you, the things that have led to this moment. And as you connect with those, just continue to take some deep breaths. And very, very slowly, it's like maybe 1/10 at a time, allow your eyelids to open. Thank you. I keep a gratitude journal, which I imagine many people in this room do. It's been I'm a teacher and I'm a writer, and so many of the practices with writing that I do, the gratitude journal has been the most profound. Just taking, it can even be 2 minutes a day, just to jot down a couple of the things that I'm grateful for. And it's not just in the recognition, it's in the searching, it's in the looking through our day, saying, yeah, I really am, I don't know who grew that wonderful rainbow shard I had for dinner last night. I don't know who that is, but I certainly feel gratitude towards them. And if I take the time, I recognize that. So thank you. And, I want to say thank you in a way that I stop and think about those words. Thank you. So often we say, how are you? Thank you. They become these kind of hollow expressions that we're not really present in. It's just a way of saying hello and goodbye with a little, a few more words added in. And so I want to say thank you and really feel it, because I do. And I feel so grateful to Tommy and to Recovery 2.0 and the team behind the scenes, to Ashley, who's helping put this together, and to acknowledge that gratitude and to be present in the words, and to thank you all. And we've got 108. How perfect. We have 108 participants here right now, which makes me smile that all of you have taken time from your day to show up, and to show up with generosity, with the belief in story and the power of story in our community, to inspire, to teach, to educate, to learn. And there's a generosity in listening too. So thank you. I'll tell you some stories. So again, my name is Eric Gordon, and I am a person in long-term recovery from addiction. And my life is, in a lot of ways, my life could be broken into, a very fundamental two parts of living: the times that I've been sober and the times that I've been in the throes of addiction. I have been, over the last 31 years, I've spent somewhere around 26 of them sober. And it's impossible to pin it down because I've been someone who in the past has had many relapses, and I say it in the past because, I don't want to say I'm someone who relapses but I've had many, many relapses over the years, with a kind of arrogance that I could go out when things got really, really hard and I could come back. And breaking those two parts of my life up, in sobriety, in addiction, I dropped out of high school. I overdosed many times. I have come so close to death that I really don't understand sometimes why I'm still here. I feel like so many of us do, they're guardian angels. Something's been looking out because, my chances of living through some of those things were just so, I think, so low. And somehow I came through. In the times of sobriety, I went back to school. I earned a GED first, and then went to college, and then graduate school, and ultimately completed a doctorate and taught at Columbia University's Teachers College for about 16 years. Extremes. Everything has been extreme. So I'll tell you a little bit about some history, just kind of going back. And I really want to try not to linger in the dark, but really focus on rather the light, because there has been so much of it. And that light has been, when I think about myself as a father and as a son and a husband and a teacher, and a yogi, and a list of these kind of these things that are very, very important to me. None of that is possible for me to do that, to bring myself to that, without sobriety. So I won't linger in, I told you 31 years, that, maybe 6 of them have been in use, and 26, or is it 5 in use, 20, however it plays out. I won't linger in those using years too much, but I'll tell you a bit of where I'm coming from. I started very, very early. I had a kind of maybe unconventional upbringing. I grew up with hippie parents. There were a lot of different homes with many, many people, and almost kind of communal living, and not a lot of feeling of safety in those spaces. And I started early. I got high the first time when I was 10, and by the time I was 13, I was smoking weed multiple times a day, and drinking as much as I could, and even starting to play with some hallucinogens, and it just continued to get worse. And very quickly, I became that kid. The first day of 7th grade, I stayed after school with a good friend, and we went into the woods and split a bottle of, I think, Boone's Farm wine, which I don't know if they still make that stuff. It is so disgusting. And I think back, this is 40 years later, and I still get the chills. It's so gross. But we each took a Quaalude and split this bottle of wine, and probably each weighed 90 pounds or something, and came wandering back to catch the after school, the sports buses, and just passed out on the in front of the school, which happened to be in front of the principal's office. And so I was, the principal brought me in, and I threw up all over his office. And this was the first week of 7th grade. And I tell that story because it became this, that became who I was very, very quickly. You earn a reputation and nothing is private. And I was the kid who threw up in the principal's office on his desk, and that was the path. This path of extremes, but also in this kind of sense of identity construction. I was the one who wanted extreme and needed to perform extreme. If there was someone who would take, an ounce of mushrooms, I might take 7 just to show that I could do it, and then have, such a terrifying trip that I would think that I'd lost my mind. But it was a mix of kind of chasing the most extreme experience, but also defining this extreme identity. And part of it may have been, I think I have some competitive tendencies, and I didn't play sports. And so I played getting high, and it was very important to me to be the most extreme of anyone. If somebody was doing something crazy, I had to show that I could do something crazier. Part of this, the title of the talk, Wait, Where Did I Go?, is thinking about how we navigate identity, the way we perceive ourselves, the way other people perceive us in sobriety. Because for me, it was very, very challenging. When I first got clean, on my own, not because I was, being forced to go somewhere. I went to rehab at 17, but not by choice. But when I was 22 and first got clean, I really felt like I was disappearing. I felt like I was invisible. I felt like all of the things that I was known for, saw myself as, that extreme person who had no fears. When of course the irony is I was suffocating under my fears, but I had no physical fears. And I had so many emotional fears that I carried so deeply. But when I finally got clean at 22, I was struggling sober. I was pulling muscles in my body because I carried so much tension and stress and didn't know how to deal with it. And I decided it would be a great idea to climb all of the bridges in New York City without any protection, without ropes or anything, to free climb the bridges in New York City. And again, I share that because there was this that persona of crazy, of extreme, of which is blurred because I am a sensation seeker, and I love experience, and I love, I love traveling to new places. I love hiking in the mountains. I love feeling the beauty of the earth, and hopefully it's more and more healthy. But it's blurred with that thing of an outward persona of being the crazy one. And so feeling like I was disappearing, that's just one example. Feeling like I was disappearing. I was, the one who at the party was, kind of standing uncomfortable in the corner, drinking a bottle of water, because I didn't, I was still trying to participate without drinking and doing drugs. But it was trying not to disappear. It was trying to say, I'm still here. I'm still worthy. I'm still, I'm present. I'm not disappearing. When of course it was like, it was me trying to struggle through. What does it mean to navigate? Getting closer to yourself, getting to know yourself more without drugs and alcohol. So I'll flash forward a little bit. That I left high school, started going on tour with the Grateful Dead, and did that for a number of years. And then when I finally took a GED, I realized I enjoyed learning. Had some real deficiencies. I hadn't really taken any classes, hadn't shown up for any classes since 9th grade. And there it was kind of mixed. I was the kid who, when the finals at the end of the year would come, I remember 8th grade finals, same friend I passed out in the principal's office and threw up with, we went into the woods before finals, and he had 2 grams of hash, and we were committed to just smoking all of it. So we smoked all of it, and then went in and both just put our heads down and didn't even take the finals. So there were deficiencies that I carried. I carried this thing of I'm a high school dropout, and all of the shame with that. And I tried to hide that a lot when I went back to school. But I realized I really liked it, but I did. I had some deficiencies. I had to work extra hard. And then I brought that kind of obsessive, extreme personality to my studies, and continued through, got a master's, started teaching middle school. I was a middle school teacher for years, and then went back to do doctorate. And got a scholarship and was invited to teach at the university, and taught teachers for years. And it's always been hard for me to think about and talk about, I guess, some of these things without making an either or, kind of an extreme out of it, because I started creating programs at the college, at Teach College, Columbia University, to work with struggling students. I created a literacy program to teach incarcerated students at Rikers Island, and built publishing houses in schools in the Bronx, and really thinking about how can I address the struggling student that I was and make school not feel like school. And that was work that I was really, really proud of. And at the same time, there was this overlayer of the need to be recognized, and the need to make things more and more and more extreme. I got an award at the university. The president of the college gave it to me while I was still a doctoral student for this program that I had built. And it was the biggest recognition I'd ever had. There was a dinner held, and that very night, I had an emotional collapse. I just fell apart. This event is over, and I've got this award and this article about, like, it was this high point in my career at that point. And I went home and I cried, like, just fell apart. And the falling apart was this feeling like, what's next? How can I, I did that, and now what's next? And I think part of the falling apart too was a feeling like some imposter syndrome in there. Like, I didn't really deserve that award. But so the ego around, I was a praise junkie. I was someone who needed constant recognition. And the reason I said it was complicated is because I really believe in the work that I was doing, and I believe in the work that I'm doing now. But my ego got out of control, and by out of control, like arrogance. It's easy to think of arrogance as that person is so full of themselves. They're like, my arrogance was about the incredible fragility of my ego. I mean, I had to stop reading my teacher reviews. You teach a course. I was teaching graduate courses, and I was, I'm a good teacher, and I think some of that is where I'm coming from, and some of it is that I'm creative, and my classes are not conventional, and they move quickly, and I'm trying to justify I'm a good teacher, and people would, my classes would always be the first to fill up, and the waiting list would be very long, and my reviews were pretty stellar, and I received teaching awards from the college a handful of times, but these stellar awards, this is an example of a sick ego. I read through my reviews, and someone wrote, "This is one of the best classes I've ever taken." And my response, and I kind of hovered over myself and saw it at this point. My response was to think, what do you mean one of the best classes? What did I do wrong? It was such a glass house, because I was carrying so much shame that I had to constantly prove myself as not just worthy or acceptable, but in this really sick way of like the best at everything. And so I had many years of sobriety in that period of time, and I was building, and I was very intense about work, and I'm sure it was, there was workaholism and at play, but it was this unchecked, fragile ego that I let get out of control, and so I fell, and I fell really, really hard. The college had just created this movie, like a little documentary about my teaching, and they called it Change Maker. And so, it was another, like, for me, I was at this point where, I was getting all this recognition for my work. I believed in the work, but there was this sick need for, I never felt good enough, never even close to good enough. And so I relapsed. And when I relapsed on some pain medication. And within a very short amount of time, I hadn't done hard drugs in over 20 years. And within a very short time, I was sniffing around projects in Brooklyn, finding, street heroin, and for a couple of years, just spiraled completely out of control. And this is with 2 young kids and a wife who was trying to support me, and in and out of rehab, and staying clean for bits of time, falling apart again, so close to death, like this constant battle with it. And something hit me, and I realized, and Tommy and I have been friends. He's one of my oldest friends in the world. We've been friends since we were either 14 or 15. And we were on Grateful Dead tour together with a lot of history, but I'd lost touch. We hadn't talked for a while. Something hit me that I needed to go to India, and still wasn't in touch with Tommy, but bought a plane ticket and spent some time at an ashram getting clean, got on the plane in withdrawal. Terrible experience. Never board a plane when coming off of heroin for a 26-hour flight. And, it was a slow process of of getting to know myself better and becoming humbled. Tommy has a great saying that he's shared with me, that if you're not humble, you'll be humbled with an ED. And I had some real humbling coming, and the humbling was about making a relationship with myself. And so I challenged myself, as I came back from India, and challenged myself to not live in the stories of my past. When I would meet people, my tendency before would be, hi, I'm Eric, and somehow I'd weave in, strategically within a few minutes, how great I was because of all the things that I had done. And I had to really actively move away from that. At the same time, I had to be alone and lonely and really miserable, and build community out of that. But this process of finding ways to be okay with myself, when I felt like I was disappearing. I guess the thing I didn't say is when I had this spiraling relapse, like I destroyed everything. I set my entire life on fire. I left my job at the university. I became estranged from my family. And so all of those things that, were both good to me, but that I identified with, they were gone. I wrecked them. So figuring out that I was me, not because of the things that I've done, but because of, the pieces of me that that allow me to live with dignity, that allow me to respect myself, that allow me to wake up in the morning and say, I have nothing to hide. It's so painful that when you're in the throes of addiction, it is so painful waking up and thinking, what lies am I living? What have I got to cover up? What do I have to protect? Waking maybe up next to someone that you're hiding things from. It's just so painful to live out of integrity with yourself. And at this point in my life, I went back to the high school classroom, doing some work with teachers still. I was teaching English teachers for so many years, but now I'm teaching a couple of high school English classes. And it was interesting. That was humbling at first, to be a high school English teacher after all of these years of, living as a professor. And I am happier professionally than I've been in as long as I can remember. I love it. I love the kids. I love the energy of the exchange. I love that I'm at a place that is really kind of where I came from, from a student who hated school, like really hated school, to, I was a middle school teacher who was building curriculum, trying to make school feel less like school, where kids were out of their seats and embodying literature and writing for publication, and doing real things in the world. And then I'm back there again, not just, I still love teaching teachers, and I do some of it, but having that direct connection with, kids who are struggling like I was, and being able to think about how my life experience, with boundaries and with, shared in certain ways, but can be a gift to them and a support to them and an insight in how I support them. I will end by saying, because I know I've been talking for a while and I wanted to have some time for questions from everybody, and some dialogue, but I read this poem with my students recently, and I want to share it just because it's a high school poem, and I want to share what what we did with it. It's called Where I'm From, and some of you've probably heard, you know, things on this theme. But you know, where I'm from is all of the many me's I carry. You know, how identity is. It's certainly, there's some things we're born into, but it's also very fluid, and it's the things that we experience and how we live through them and what we do with them. So this is by Melanie, who's a high school student. I'm from a life filled with color, from the chocolate brown that is my skin. I'm from the sunshine yellow of my mother's laugh, from the red and white of my brother's favorite football shirt. I'm from the crisp new white pages of a book, from the miserable gray of the street I live on. I'm from green, pink, and yellow, my garden in summer filled with flowers, from the terrifying black of the nightmares that haunt me. I'm from the ginger orange of my buried cat, from the blue and gold of my ever short school tie. I'm from the dark oak of my grandmother's coffin, from the golden om pendant around my neck. I'm from every pink scar etched into my body, from the red, orange, and brown of a hot curry. I'm from every identical color of the twins I love, from the blue and green of a hospital ward. I'm from all that has happened and all that will be. I'm from all that has happened and all that will be. Not acknowledging what I came from, you know, all the things that I came from. Living in a life where these shadows crept, you know, the shadow of me dropping out and teaching at an Ivy League university, and feeling in a strange way like I still carried this dropout stigma with me and hiding things. Coming from, you know, addiction experiences where I did terrible things, you know, that I look back and feel unconscionable. Hiding those parts of myself. That's the shadow, you know, and as that shadow grew and crept, and I didn't acknowledge all of the things that I'm from, and embrace. And embrace doesn't mean, you know, this was great, but embrace that that was part of my life experience. And every moment, everything that I've gone through has brought me to this moment right here. Being able to embrace that in a way, that's authenticity. And that's the sobriety that I have to live. Because when I was out of that, when I wasn't living that, then I was, you know, I was living in this kind of idealized version that, you know, that had no dark past and had no shadows and, you know, had no selfishness, had no fear, like any of the things that, you know, are very real in all of us. The more that I hid those, the more that they grew. And the more that they grew, the more danger I put myself in, ultimately, you know, almost destroying my entire life and the lives of those around me, and not living. But now I embrace them, not all without shame. You know, we still have many things we work through. But I embrace them, and I acknowledge the shame and try to work through it every day, and show up with just a level of authenticity in this moment. And right now, this moment is shared with all of you. And yeah, I would just like to say again, thank you. You know, thank you for listening and showing up, and thank you for being part of this Recovery 2.0 community and working on yourselves. You know, as we work on ourselves and we share it with others, that's the gift, and the gift is in motion. So thank you. You know, a lot of love and respect for you all.